Dark Souls is infamous for many things. It feels as if every review you read and every essay you watch can't even exist without mentioning it. And, well, don't get me wrong, Dark Souls is great in many ways. Be it the exciting combat, deep rich lore, the diverse set of items and build options, or the highly interconnected map with all of its great areas. However, despite all the love I have for this game, you simply can't deny the fact that some areas here are, well, let's just say strange in a few ways. Or even just extremely unfair and not fun. In this video, we will go over every single area in Dark Souls. And when I say every single one, I sure as hell mean every single one. Only to then rate them on a simple scale of 1 through 10, based on their appeal, atmosphere, importance for the game, their enemy variety, and their gameplay. So let's just not waste any more time and get straight into it. We'll start out with number 1, the Northern Undead Asylum. The Northern Undead Asylum serves as the tutorial hub for the player. It's a pretty out-of-way location featuring 2 bosses. First up, the Asylum Demon, who serves as the tutorial boss for the game, and then later on the Stray Demon, whom you can fight if you happen to return here later. Which, yeah, you can return here later in the game to find a pretty great area. Both the Stray Demon and the new enemies that exist once you return to the Undead Asylum serve as a great soul reward for more low-level players, offering a nice challenge. Most of the enemies here are simple hollow enemies, with the addition of a handful of knights when you do in fact return. However, the most special thing about the Asylum is the way it teaches new players the game. Besides the dev messages explaining the simple controls of the game, the gameplay of the area teaches the player that with the right dedication, they can defeat any enemy, no matter how intimidating it may seem, which is kind of the core gameplay of the Souls series. Because first, you encounter the Asylum Demon, who is practically undefeatable and scary since you don't have any proper weapons to fight it with. So, you flee the area. You then collect your gear, which you get from your starting class, explore the Asylum, and eventually are able to start the boss fight with a powerful air attack and are properly suited to defeat him. This area is also optionally necessary since it houses the peculiar doll which you need in order to access the painted world. Oh, and I also really adore the fact that you can encounter Oscar again as a hollow. You know, the guy who saves you at the beginning of the game. It really serves to undermine the atmosphere of the entire world, as you witness one of the few people who were unconditionally kind to you vanish by your own hands. Overall, the Northern Undead Asylum is a solid location, serving as the tutorial and an additional challenge later on. I rate it a 7 out of 10. Number 2. Firelink Shrine. I said we'd go into every area, so of course we need to cover Firelink Shrine, the practically only safe space you'll have in Lordran. This hub area practically serves to connect with all the other areas. It houses a handful of mostly nice NPCs that will be expanded upon the more you travel the areas. And also the Primordial Serpent, who will one day just suddenly appear inside the shrine and probably scare the shit out of you. It also serves as a tutorial for the areas of the game. Most new players, including myself when I first played, will find themselves indiscriminately wandering towards the graves, thinking this is the path to follow, and I mean, it looks obvious, only to then be put in their place again and again and again by the skeletons you can't properly take on yet. So they'll explore around a bit and eventually find a small path winding up toward the Undead Berg that seems a lot more doable. Firelink also has a nice atmospheric way. Back then, when I first played, I used to simply gaze away at the horizon, at all these structures and wonder how far they'd go on for. And again, this perfectly undermines the dark fantasy trope. Huge structures which stretch on for miles that are all dead and desolate. And you're there, a tiny human, wondering what happened to these majestic creations, wondering who built them and why it's all now so empty. But enough of praising Firelink. The area is iconic and it serves as a perfectly fine hub area, but not much more. 8 out of 10. Number 3. Undead Berg. The first actual gameplay dungeon of Dark Souls. It features a doable variety of enemies, some clever level design like the bridge where you're getting bombed, a merchant, a lot of optional paths and loot for explorers. The boss fight of this area is the Taurus demon, which is, well, fine, I guess, just fine. To get this moment, the Undead Berg harbors lies on the bridge where the Drake comes in. Once you discover the ladder halfway through leading back to the bonfire, you realize the game will likely harbor more of these connections and feel a great sense of accomplishment. The only thing I truly dislike about the Undead Berg is the Drake we spoke of before. Just being blasted with fire out of nowhere is sort of unfair, and I sadly don't see any player with weaker gear defeating this on their first go, or figuring out how to run past him easily. I mean, hell, I'm unable to do it nowadays even. But despite these small flaws, Undead Berg is a nice first area of the game, and pretty recognizable too. 8 out of 10. Number 4. Undead Parish. Now we're really starting to get going. This is basically Undead Berg Plus. More enemies, more loot, and an epic boss battle at the end. I especially like the challenge the Baldur Knights provide. And with the introduction of Andre of Astora, you're incentivized to gather souls and smith your weapons. And also again, unlocking a shortcut back to Firelink Shrine is a great moment. The boss fight is really great and creative as well, and the first nice break for mostly repetitive demon enemies. But I honestly hate the run deck because of all these hollows in the cathedral. They're a pain in the ass to deal with. But in the end it's all worth it, because ringing the bell is a very rewarding moment. I don't have anything else to dislike here. 9 out of 10, one of the better areas. Number 5. Dark Root Garden. Initially, you might be scared off by the big Titanite demon guarding the entrance, but once you manage to defeat it, you're treated to the Dark Root Garden. Right off the bat, there is something to dislike here. The hidden bonfire. Because if you're playing offline and don't get any of these messages, how the hell are you supposed to know that there's an illusory wall here? I imagine most players didn't and always had to run back from the Undead Parish bonfire. The garden itself is split up into 2 main sections, which we will from now on simply call the Butterfly section and the Sith section. The Butterfly section is what you'll likely initially set foot into. You find some pretty annoying leaf enemies, but they're alright, some tough but manageable stone knights, oh, and these sweet stingray type enemies. Oh, and you can't forget the living trees and these weird snakes on them. They're really strange and weird, but I honestly like them because of that. I really do. This strangeness is, at least for me, part of what makes Dark Souls so interesting. Eventually you'll stumble upon the boss here, the Moonlight Butterfly, which is kind of lame, but alright, since it's an optional area, you'll most likely only be in to gather equipment and souls for the gargoyle fight. It's a little sad that if you're a sorcerer, or you use strong miracles, or you're just simply using the summon, that this boss is pretty much turned into a joke. But the reward for it is exceptional, rewarding players who stray off the main path to get stronger first, because you're rewarded your very first Ember, the Divine Ember, which will be really useful later in the game. The other section is the Sith section, and it is a lot different. First off, you will need to spend 20,000 souls to access it. That's a pretty high investment, especially for new players, but you will need to go here if you want to beat the game, because the boss fight is necessary. After opening this door, you're then treated to some pretty intimidating human enemies, because these guys will fuck you in the ass if they swarm you. However, once you've made your way past them, you encounter the Forest Hunter Covenant, with this creepy cat whose name is Alvina. But practically from then on, the Darkroot Garden turns into practically a wasteland in the form of a forest. I have never seen any reason to explore around here more and just not immediately head to the Sith fight. And when I tried, I was overwhelmed by these wolf enemies? Whatever they are. Anyway, Civ itself is, in my opinion, one of the better bosses in Dark Souls. Since, I mean, you're fighting practically a huge dog with a sword in its mouth, which is sort of cool. And all the lore behind him is also pretty nice. And yeah, moving on. Darkwood Garden does have a pretty nice and fitting atmosphere, in my humble opinion. Combination of eerie sounds, birds, and leaves, which might conceal the occasional footstep you'll hear, adding an extra layer of suspension to this whole area. Overall, it's pretty cool, but it, especially in the Civ section, lacks a lot of consistency. 7 out of 10. Next up is a subsection of the Darkwood Garden, which is the Darkwood Basin, which you will reach by turning early on while making your way towards the Darkwood Garden and descending this long path, which is on the bottom. You will find the basin, occupied by 4 golems and a hydra, which upon defeating you will be treated to nothing, because you'll have to reload the game and then walk all the way over the pond, and then you can fight a golden golem, and then you can reload your game again, and then you can access the Dusk's spells, which is really, I mean, you don't really need these, to be honest. You don't need the spells if you're not a sorcerer. So honestly, this is a throwaway area. If it wouldn't be for the DLC, which you might want to play, and you will have to defeat the Hydra and go down here if you want to play the DLC, because the entrance for the DLC is around here. This whole area is alright, but it really lacks some substance. Like, it kind of feels like a throwaway area. So I rated a 5 out of 10. Next up, we've got the lower part of the Undead Berg, which is accessible after picking up this key in the Undead Parish. And then you can open this door right here and enter the lower Undead Berg, which is indeed, as the title would suggest, below the Undead Berg. Which is pretty cool, actually. This area depicts the image of a sort of town, but it's filled with some of the most annoying enemies you can find early game. These dogs, goddamn the dogs, and these assassin guys who can parry you, and they always ambush you. Oh, and by the way, you can find an inferior version of Big Head Logan. Then move on to one of the worst bosses in the game, the fucking Capra Demon. I have no shame in cheesing that one, and honestly that's all there is to it. Nothing truly remarkable or great about this. It's alright. 5 out of 10. Number 7, the Depths. This is the area that broke me when I first played, because this is a rat-infested shithole serving as the sort of sewers of the Undead Berg. Or at least that's what I always like to think. It has a somewhat cool butcher enemy, I'll give him that. But then later on it's just filled with basilisks in a maze-type layout. Which, if you know basilisks, especially in a maze, this is a nightmare. And it can prove to be incredibly annoying. But, again, there's a great sense of accomplishment when you're opening the shortcuts that lead back to the bonfire. That's cool. And the area boss is the Gaping Dragon, which is one of the most unique bosses in the game. Because you'd expect for the Gaping Dragon to be another, like, fucking default dragon enemy. But then you've got this kind of crocodile, which is really cool. And I really like the arena and how big and wide spanning it is, and you never really go back there anyways, but it's still there, that's cool. And it's just an alright location, all over. But definitely more remarkable than the lower Undead Berg. There's also a merchant here, and here you can unlock the pyromancy guy, if that's your fancy. 6 out of 10. Number 8. Blight Town. Fucking Blight Town. Everyone has had just the worst experiences in this fucking place. Annoying layout, annoying fucking enemies, hidden bonfires, poison and toxicity. Oh god, where do we even begin here? The paths you're walking on are incredibly small, and especially if you use the fucking shitty lock-on option, you're prone to falling down. A lot. It's also so twisted that you barely know where to go, and it feels like a giant maze because it has all this verticality and is horizontally spanning so far, and you don't really know where you need to go. I mean, you can see that you somehow need to reach the swamp down there, but honestly, who would have thought you need to go down there? The enemies here are honestly a nightmare because they consist of these shitty big club guys that knock you back. Call back to the small pass, you remember those? You will fall down. We have these weird firebugs, which are honestly the most alright enemy you have in this place. We then got mosquitoes, which are quite annoying. These goddamn firewolves, and then these fucking Once you reach the bottom, you are engulfed in a swamp which poisons you. Right, that's awesome. More poison, more toxicity. I mean, we love having our health drained over time and being able to not do anything about it, right? And then also getting back up and out is a fucking nightmare. But at least you're treated to a nice reward, because the boss is good, and likely my favorite boss in the whole game. Kerlak is a good boss. 6 out of 10. Number 9. Kerlak's Domain. This is basically a second hub which offers the Chaos Servant Covenant. I kind of like the style here with all of these eggs and just actually making it look like a spider slayer. But I really dislike the locked shortcut tied to the Chaos Servant Covenant, which will later lead on to the Lost Isolith. This is basically what you need to do if you want to finish Soler's quest while keeping him alive. And this is like something that you can't know about as a new player, right? Because why would you know that if you spend 30 humanity to like this sister of Kerlak's, that then the shortcut in the middle of nowhere is able to open up? But I mean, that's alright. The best thing about this place is that you can warp here if you have the Lord Vessel, but that's really all there's to it. 7 out of 10. Number 10. The Great Hollow. This area is located inside of a tree in the Blight Town swamp on the farther end. And it's basically just a long climb down the inside of a tree filled with basilisks and these funny mushroom guys. I don't really know what to say here. I mean, this area is pretty unremarkable. I kind of like the idea. It reminds me a lot of like Mario, if that makes sense. But I never really end up going here because, well, we'll see in the next entry, but I don't really see any reason as to coming here. 6 out of 10. Number 11. Ash Lake. Ash Lake is reached once you arrive at the bottom of the Great Hollow. I must say it has some incredible atmosphere. I really adore the skybox here, demonstrating again just how massive this world truly is. And you also got to think that now, okay, now we're on the bottom, right? We're so much further down. This is like below all these structures up above, but we're also like on a mountain. So where are we looking at? What are we looking at now? I love this. This is nice. But again, there's not much reason for coming here. You've got these enemies, and then there's another Hydra. Honestly, I never really liked the Hydra fight, so I'm a bit biased, but this one doesn't really have a reward. And then if you walk all the way across these dunes, there is the Dragon Covenant, which I never really ended up using either, so yeah. Pretty unremarkable. 6 out of 10. Number 12. Valley of the Drakes. This is a pretty interesting area which serves basically as a connection between a bunch of places. There's New Londo, Blight Town, and the Darkroot Basin, just to name a few. But sadly there's only one type of enemy here. Predominantly you will encounter the Drakes. And the design of the whole area is just kind of lacking, to be honest. It feels like only a really unnatural path. And besides using this as a connector for players who have not got the Lord Vessel yet, you can fight an Undead Dragon. Which is honestly a pretty lame fight, especially if you're a sorcerer. But that's fine. That's all this area is for, and it does well what it has to do. 7 out of 10. Number 13. Sense Fortress. This is one of the most infamous locations in the whole Dark Souls series. After you've rung both bells of awakening, it opens its doors, inviting you into a house full of traps and lizards. This place can be really annoying at times. You're practically on a really thin path, you have to dodge lightning bolts that are being shot at you, swinging axes, and then also fight a lizard simultaneously. And once you reach the top, there are giants hurling bombs at you. Sadly, the bonfire here is also quite hidden. You have to just kind of drop off this ledge here, which, I mean, again, how are you supposed to know this? But I guess it's fine. There are a lot of these bonfires throughout the game. Additionally, on the way up, you'll be faced with the balls, which can easily kill an attempt at climbing this fortress. The area boss here is the Iron Golem. It's a pretty okay boss, but it's honestly not much more than just a giant. Oh, and if you don't kill this giant up here or crush its balls, he'll be throwing them at you during the fight, which is a pretty cool touch, and I can see a new player experiencing this for the first time and then thinking, oh, well, if I go up there and kill this guy, and then, you know, it's a nice moment. Sense Fortress also houses Big Head Logan, who is essential to sorcerers, so that's a big plus in my book. And I kind of like it because it's distinct from all the other dungeon type areas. I mean, there's only one area in this game with traps like these, and that's the reason why it's so infamous. 8 out of 10. Number 14. Anor Londo. Oh, great Anor Londo. Where do we even begin? This whole area is not only visually stunning, but also provides that feeling of scale once more. I mean, you're up here, you're looking down, you see this big city stretching so far into the horizon, and this moment in the cutscene where you're being lifted by these imps up over the wall is just so great, because this is like the last thing you would have expected after defeating the Iron Golem, right? You was expected to have more of the same mundane progression you had before, but then suddenly you're being lifted and you see this big town. This is awesome. Awesome moment. Great. The level design here is extremely clever, because instead of like walking on the streets, it's sending you across the rafters and then into the main building through the window. Although getting there can be a little annoying with these arches. I mean, they're infamous for a reason, called the Anor Londo arches, but inside you're faced with knights of all kinds and mimics for the first time. Oh, and also these giant guys. And in fact, there are actually two very cool bosses here. Of course, we've got Ornstein and Smo, but there's also Gwyndolin, the Dark Sun. I don't think I have to say anything particularly about Ornstein and Smo. They're infamous for a reason as one of the best bosses in the whole genre, and they basically serve as the halfway point of the game, because afterwards you are granted the Lord Vessel and a greater purpose by Guinevere. Which, by the way, one of the coolest details that I absolutely adore about this area is that she is not real. I mean, you could speculate that she's not real because of how big she is. I mean, there's something else big as well, but she is an illusion created by Gwyndolin. So if you happen to kill her, Anor Londo turns dark, which is how it's supposed to be. that nice shining sun is only an illusion, it doesn't look that way. And once you do so, this whole area turns really strangely eerie and obscure, but it's just so cool. And Gwendolyn is also a really cool boss, because practically all you're doing is dodging his attacks and then attacking him back. So it's again kind of a gimmick boss, but I like gimmick bosses. I'd vote for more of them. 9 out of 10. Number 15. The Firelink Chamber. This one is accessed by either tumbling down the hole in Firelink Shrine or being taken here by either of the two primordial serpents. This is the place where the Lord Vessel belongs, and eventually after getting it you will access this area. And honestly, besides that, there's nothing really to it. I mean, it looks kind of nice, but it just kind of serves as a spot where you can eventually enter the last area of the game. And there's nothing really else to do here, but it looks cool. 6 out of 10. Number 16. The Painted World of Aryamis. Again, one of the cooler areas. This one is accessed if you return to the Undead Asylum, like we spoke of before, and picked up the peculiar doll from your former cell. Then you can enter the painting on the lower level of the rafters, and then you will end up here, in the Painted World. You can't leave again unless you finish this area, and it's so visually stunning and different from everything else you've seen or you're used to. It's great. This is a great area. And I honestly hate the fact that they hid it from the most new players. Like, I only found this on my 3rd playthrough. I found out that you can enter the Painted World, and it was such an eye-opener. To reach the area boss here, you've got to fight another Undead Dragon, which, I mean, it's alright. This one's a lot better than the previous one. And then jump past this weird dinosaur thingy, which will just kind of stand up. And then you can reach the area boss, the godly Priscilla. And this is an optional boss, because she'll let you leave, unless you want to pick a fight with her. This whole area would be flawless if it weren't for that shitty basement with all of its wheel skeletons. This area down here sucks ass. 8 out of 10. Number 17. The Duke's Archives. These are reached via Anor Londo, and the Duke's Archives are basically the magic area of Dark Souls. A grand library of tomes and sorceries. But it can be quite hard with these tough enemies, but they do make up for this area. I love it. I love every magic area in any game. And this one, it feels especially well done because, I mean, you cannot go wrong with huge bookshelves filled to the brim with tomes. This is perfect. Once you make it past the first half of a dungeon, you are faced with the area boss, Steve the Scaleless. But you cannot harm him, because in order to proceed he needs to kill you, and he will curse you unless you're wearing a ring of sacrifice. Which I mean, again, you can't notice as a new player. And chances are slim also that you have a Purging Stone with you at this point. Because to access this, of course, likely when you were in Anor Londo, you passed by this great shining barrier which said sealed by the Lord's power, and then once you placed the Lord vessel you saw it open, and then you were like, oh man, I know where this is, let's just go there and see what this is all about. So you have not been to New Londo yet, so that's kind of the bad thing, but honestly it's fine. You will then end up in the prison tower, and this area is honestly extremely cool because you will need to snatch the key from the guard, and I feel like every first-time Dark Souls player has had the same experience, where they ended up here and they thought that they were fucking trapped. And they softlocked their game. Okay, Anyway, moving on, you will make your grand escape and end up back in the main building, and then do some shifting around with the staircases and fight a bunch of fucking sorcerers and archers, which can prove really annoying. But eventually you end up at a bonfire, and if you saved Logan, who is here again also, he will say you some of the most OP spells in the game, if you decide to help him. This whole area, the Duke's Archives, very cool dungeon, I really like it, 8 out of 10. Number 18. The Crystal Cave. I don't like it. I really don't. Whoever thought invisible paths would be a good idea sucks. And see, the area boss also sucks because, like before, he can and will curse you upon death, as well as the fact that he's just a total pain in the ass if you want to cut his tail off for the weapon. Like, I mean, good luck doing that. But generally, this whole area just contributes to being a stretch for the Thief runback. Like, I mean, did we really need all this running across invisible paths? Was it necessary? There's nothing here anyway. This whole area is bad, honestly, and will be the worst rated so far. 4 out of 10. Number 19. New Londo Ruins. This one is another area I truly despise. It's predominantly populated by ghosts, which not only have a pretty big range, but are also able to attack through and phase through walls. Oh, and by the way, if you first come here, you can't attack them, because you will need to either be cursed or use a transient curse to do so. But even if you're able to attack them, that doesn't make climbing the building to reach Ingward any less annoying. Once you get the key from him, you can open the floodgates and unlock the lower section. This is a little better because the enemies here are a lot better and more comfortable to fight. And I also kind of like how they did this progression thing, where the water level descends, and you've got a whole new area unlocked because the whole town is like flooded. That's nice. That's a nice touch. This is also where the Valley of the Drakes connects, this area. And it leads to another area containing a necessary boss. I can see some compelling arguments being made for New Londo, sure, but that doesn't change the fact that I really dislike it, and every time I think back to New Londo, I just want to quit. This is kind of like the wet, dry world of Dark Souls. 5 out of 10. Number 20. The Abyss. Only accessible by wearing the Covenant of Artorias ring, the Abyss is a black void of nothingness. This is really cool, but again, just so obscure that it's awesome. Here you'll be going up against the 4 kings, which are basically the same boss, but 4 times. So it's basically just 1 king and his 3 clones, but whatever. They're a cool boss, people like him, I like them too a lot, and the Abyss makes for a nice arena. We got a 6 out of 10. Number 21, the Catacombs. These are easily accessed through Firelink Shrine. The skeletons can prove a bit tricky if you don't have a divine weapon, because they can construct themselves again. I have never really understood this rule, but I once read that a divine weapon basically kills them directly, so that's why I'm saying a divine weapon. But in any case, they're manageable, especially since I think a lot of players will only be returning here once they're a lot stronger than being a low-level early game character. And eventually you will end up by Vamos, a great blacksmith which you will need for a couple of embers. Then you move on to fight Pinwheel, which will of course take thousands upon thousands of attempts because he will kill you again and again and again because he's just so fucking hard and I never knew what to do against him. This fight rewards you with the Rite of Kindling, so you can gain more than just 10 Estus flasks at a kindled bonfire in exchange for humanity. but I honestly never really ended up using that feature at all. You can also access the Gravelord Covenant from the Catacombs, but I'm just gonna be honest, any navigation besides the main path is just confusing and a pain in the ass. I never understood what these levers did, I just kind of go through these directly to the pinwheel fight. However, the idea is really cool, and if I'm being honest, a fantasy setting wouldn't be a fantasy setting without some sort of catacombs. 7 out of 10. Number 22. Tomb of the Giants. Honestly, sucks pretty bad because of how dark it is. But also makes for these great moments where you see eyes in the dark, and that's about all there is to say for good moments here. Especially in the beginning stages, you're prone to falling down because you just simply can't see where you're going. It's so dark, you can't even like guess if this is like a cliff or whatever. You can use prism stones, you will get some of them early on, I remember that, but I never really did either because they were just not really in the way of helping. Eventually, patches will trap you, which is a great moment, I love that one. And then you'll gain a lantern for this area, and then it's just kind of more of the same, because now you can't see where you're going, and you will just be fighting giant skeletons and these weird giant skeleton dogs, which are, holy shit, these fuckers are strong, and they will likely beat your ass. Then you'll fight the Gravelord himself, Nidu. Which again, this can be a pretty annoying boss fight if you get too close, and now you'll have to deal with a million skeletons, which again, think back, skeletons, sometimes they just don't die if you kill them. And that's just pretty lame for a boss fight. I hate these bosses that are just like, not hard by themselves, but they make them harder by just spamming a bunch of other enemies. This is not necessarily just restricted to Dark Souls, by the way. This could be any game. I've played a lot of games that have bosses like these. But besides all this is an okay area. 7 out of 10. Next up, number 23, the Demon Ruins. These harbor two bosses and are accessed through Kalak's domain. The whole area is visually stunning and really vibrant when you first reach it because, again, these colors, you have not seen these before. And the lava is nice. Again, can't have a fancy game for lava. Demons, whatever. The first area boss is the Caesar's Discharge, and this is an okay guy. He will, although he will easily fry you on low levels with his fire attack. But the cliffhanging tactic, I mean, that's just goated. That's goated. I love that design. And I love how he just scares the shit out of you once you take like the armor set. That's great. After killing him, you can then move on deeper towards the ruins because the lava has been flushed out. You will encounter again some copper demons, which are now not a shitty annoying boss with his pack of dogs, but actually just enemies that go down in like 2 hits. And then you'll find a bonfire and eventually fight the Fire Sage demon, which is again an okay boss, but is honestly nothing more than a stray demon again, but now with an area of effect attack that will just fuck you over. After that, you fight the Centipede demon, whom you can spot earlier, which is a cool detail. However, he is quite hard, especially early on due to his arena and sun attacks. But the reward, the orange shard ring, is well worth it. The enemies here are somewhat diverse. We've got fire-breathing statues, Capra demons as mentioned, these worm things, I think you've seen them in Blight Town before, and the big demons. Pretty cool area, I like it. I never really despised being here. 8 out of 10. Number 24. The Lost Isolith. Infamous for its long boss run back, Lost Isolith is accessible after killing the Centipede Demon. Honestly, its population consists of these statue things again and these weird frogs. I always thought these kind of looked like frogs, but whatever. And the area boss is, as you all know, the fucking Bed of Chaos. The Lost Harbor of a Lord Soul Shard. It's a gimmick boss and more of a timing thing, and it can get really annoying. But honestly, every time I've defeated it, it just felt so good, man. But I can definitely see you going 20-30 attempts in here. Besides the culmination of the Katarina quest, there's not much else to do here. You're only really here for the boss. And its overall look is kind of cool. I like this temple type design. But that's about it, yeah. It's a fine area. I don't usually recall it with fondness in mind, but that's honestly the boss's fault and not the area. 7 out of 10. Number 25. The last area in the game. The Kiln of the First Flame. Final area of Dark Souls. The grand finale of your journey. And my god, is it great. The atmosphere here is crazy good. I mean, you see this huge valley of ash and wonder what and how it burned away. The broken Colosseum in the distance solidifying the depth of this world and giving mysterious answers as to why it's been so empty up until now. The only enemies here are Black Knights, serving as the protection of the final boss, who is no other than Lord Gwyn himself, the final boss, standing between you and a finished run. He is an okay boss at best. That's because there are only really 2 ways to defeat this guy. I mean, you either parry the crap out of him, or you do it like me here and run an incredible glass cannon sorcerer build with the homing soul mass spell, and then he practically eliminates himself. But despite all this, this is a perfect culmination and finale for this game. The whole area, I mean. And also, these 2 endings are pretty cool, I like them. But I couldn't figure out for a long time that the second ending is reached by simply walking away. But whatever. 8 out of 10. So that's that then. Every area in Dark Souls 1 ranked. I had a lot of fun doing this video, and I'm partially considering doing another video purely focusing on the atmosphere and especially the first Souls game. And maybe I'll do another video as well covering the DLC areas from the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, which I have not covered in this video because honestly I haven't played the DLC in a long time, and when I was recording for this video I did not play the DLC either. This whole video was just born out of me replaying the game and just wanting to hash on a bit about, you know, the areas in the game, maybe vent a little. I went pretty hard on Blight Town, but I mean, who doesn't? But yeah, after all, this is just my opinion. If you have other ideas or opinions about any of the areas, please let me know down in the comments. I'll reply. A like, or better yet, a sub would be greatly appreciated. I know I'm just starting out with this YouTube thing, but I'm hoping to be able to entertain, like, at least a few people. So, yeah, if you've come this far, thank you a lot for watching. A lot of sweat went into making this, my first ever video. And yeah, until then, have an incredible day, and thank you so much for watching this. Farewell.